Howdy, everybody. Hopefully, you guys are settled in for the evening and ready to learn. In this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to learn a little bit differently than normal. I'm going to share something that my team and I have been preparing for you so that you guys can learn from that as well. Now, a couple of quick housekeeping things. If this is your first time here, or not, I still want to know your first name, where you're from, how many units you currently have. Feel free to type that in the chat because I can see it. And I see a number of you are already here and you have already shared. I love it. It was looks like Robert's done it, Ryan's done it. We got Rashima. We've got a number of people. Hello, Michelle. Glad that you guys are here. And there's a number of you who have you came in and you instantly shared, and some people are probably wondering what that's about, and I'll tell you in a second. At the end of the day, you can see some information about me on the screen, some deals that we've done, lots of things, and those are all the good things, right? Those are all the good things. So, and Bobby V from Mission Viejo zero at the moment. That's pretty funny, Robert. You're crazy. It's zero yet. Okay, I like that. That's good. That's good. Zero at the moment. Just make sure that you always remember that. Anyway, my name is Jay Massey, CEO of Cashflow Diary. Thanks for being here. We're going to share with you, we've got something prepared that I'm going to try to share with you guys that I think will help you just have some perspective and hopefully give some of you some courage at the same time. Yes, I can hear the fan or the rain. I know it came on just as the same time as I hit the microphone button, and because I forgot to turn it off. So yes, there is a fan going on right now, and it's probably really, 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 really loud. Forgive me. Anyway. For those of you who are here and you were wondering why did all those people share so quickly, well, it's because right now we are giving away, or we're running a giveaway. The giveaway is for an iPad Pro 9.7 gigabyte, 9.7 inch, 128 gigabyte model. It is in space gray. All you have to do is share the broadcast every time that I am live for an entry. So each time you share, you get one entry. You share multiple times, you get multiple entries. As it's all set, when it's all said and done on the first, what we're going to do is we're just going to pull one of your entries, somebody's entry, out of the hat and send them the iPad. I actually already have the wonderful device here with me for those of you who are wondering. And yes, it's sitting right here on my desk because it's going to go to one of you, and all you have to do is share. We track all the shares, whether it's you invite your followers on Periscope. I love those. Invite them on Twitter or Facebook. It doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that you go out there and share, and that's all you got to do in order to enter. Now, as a reminder, you can always catch out our replays on cashflowdiary.tv, and if you haven't before, feel free to download the podcast. We've been downloaded over 1 million times. I guess that means something might be there that could help you go out there and build your business in cash flow as well. And that's what we do here. For those of you joining, that's what I do, is I come up with ways to help you understand how to build assets using real estate and real estate related strategies, as well as online strategies, etc. Many of you know that we're in the process of putting together the course for our short-term rentals, because that's something I've been doing. We're at 19 of these, and it's pretty awesome to have these things going over and over and over again, and learning so many things, and been sharing so much with some of the members already, and they're already making money, which is really, really awesome, and we're going to be sharing that with you. If you want to be in the know about that, just go to cashflowdiary.com/coming soon. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/coming soon. Haley, what's up? I see you. You guys are already here. That's good. Because I was talking to Haley and her husband earlier today, and I know that they're highly, highly, highly motivated to get their short-term rental game on strong. And I would encourage you guys to take lots of deep looks into what we're going to be talking about and get yourself over to cashflowdiary.com/coming soon. Now, so that you guys know what we're going to be talking about here is that we've prepared something for you. I'm going to talk about 7 of mistakes that I have actually made, and I'm going to assign dollar values to them. And it's something that we've prepared for you. So I'm going to switch to the video in a minute so that you guys can see it and go through it, because I think it'll help you learn a lot of things. I think it'll help you learn a lot of things about what is it going to take for you to build your cash flow, grow your cash flow, go to that next level, etc. Plus, as someone who's always talking about real estate, most of the time in business, most of the time when you talk to someone like that, you don't ever get to hear, like, did you ever make a mistake? Did it always go well? And the answer is no. It's never always gone well for anybody. And I find that sometimes people want to try to give the impression that it's always gone well. So what we decided to do is, one, we're going to do this particular session where you get to see some of the mistakes, and then we'll do another one where you get to where I'm going to just talk to you about, what has happened when things go wrong with investors, etc., or when deals go south, or when contractors do crazy stuff. Anyway, we'll get into that. But what I want to do right now is that I really, really, really want to share with you, like I said in the title, 7 mistakes. So hopefully I've given you enough time to go grab a pen or paper, something to write down, because there's lots of lessons that you're going to be able to pick up really, really quickly. Lots of don't do this and lots of do this way, so that you can have success that you're going to pick up right now. And I want to make sure that you guys are ready for it. So hopefully that works out for you. And I'm looking forward to hearing and watching all of your comments come in, and hopefully you enjoy this without freaking out too much. And if I scare you completely away from real estate and business, that's fine by me too, because all of this stuff is real. Some of the names and faces, well, except mine, have been changed to protect the innocent. Nonetheless, I want to make sure that you guys are capable of just understanding, stuff happens, but it doesn't mean it's the end. So here we go. Hi guys, this is Jay Massey with the Cash Flow Diary, and I'm glad that you have taken the time to invest here, and I promise to produce a return. Now, I don't know how big of a return, but here's what I will tell you. We're going to go over some of my largest mistakes, and those largest mistakes have literally cost me millions of dollars, and that's millions, and that's also with an S. So that's 7 digits, and I want to share that information with you, not because I'm necessarily like, ooh, wow, look at all the big blow-ups that happened, but most importantly, that I believe because we were willing to go through the mistakes, we now have the benefit of being able to turn those mistakes. We get the benefit to be able to profit from them, and more importantly, by sharing them with you, you have the opportunity to profit from them from the beginning, because experience can be one of the best and most efficient teachers, and that's exactly why you're watching today. So I'm going to do my best to make you more efficient from the beginning, so therefore you don't do some of the largest things that I have done. We're going to shorten those learning curves, make it easy for you to be successful from the beginning, and as you watch all the way through, I think you'll understand where many of the things that I come up with come from. Now, some of you probably don't even know who I am yet, really. So if you permit me, I'll want to take just a small little smidge of time and share with you some of the things that, like how we got started, and more importantly, the things that have happened to us along the way that I think will help you understand my perspective, and more importantly, the types of lessons that you can learn, not only from this webinar, but from all the things that we do here at the Cash Flow Diary to make sure that you can be successful. A few short years ago, my wife and I were in a situation in which many would call less than perfect, and by that I mean the following. My wife was suffering from a condition known as hyperemesis. Now, if you're like me, when I first heard it, I didn't know what that was. I thought it was, just a confusing term the doctors made up to sound smart and charge a lot of money. What it really means is that she could not consume something as simple as bread or water while pregnant. She couldn't eat or drink. Let's call that stressful. One day, to blow off steam, I went to play volleyball. I went and played volleyball. I jumped to spike the ball, landed on a guy's head, and punctured my lung. I was born with asthma. When I punctured my lung, I developed a condition known as pleurisy. Now, it meant the combination of the two plus a drug interaction, I could not walk and talk simultaneously without fainting. So here we are, my wife, she can't eat or drink, and I can't walk or talk. We're quite the pair at that moment. All of this leads to many different things. I learned a very painful lesson that being self-employed means if you don't go to work, you don't eat. Many of you may know about that lesson. We learned it so well that we started having to squat and bank-owned property. Our primary residence was foreclosed on, so understand that.
I didn't really know where we were going to stay. We had a credit score of 398, and we couldn't put $75 together. It was around that time a friend says, hey, you should become a real estate investor, which that's the natural choice, right? Here's what we did. We listened. We didn't let what we didn't have stop us, and we moved forward anyway to find out, could there be a possibility around that corner? We gave ourselves a shot. In doing so, we learned that there was a way to do real estate using none of our own money and credit. And it took a while to get started and figure out all the intricacies and things, but what ended up happening is we closed on a property even while we were still squatting in bank-owned property. So that was interesting, to say the least. 3 weeks after that, we did another 11 transactions, and since then, we've gone on to do hundreds of transactions in many different states. We currently have a portfolio that spans hundreds of units across many different states, one commercial property at the moment, as well as a cell phone tower, and we're working with some partners to build a resort. So all of those things started from a position which most people would consider disadvantaged. However, having no prior experience, no prior background, no understanding really of real estate, that left us open to making a series of a number of mistakes that I want to share with you. Because I believe that by sharing them, you get the opportunity to learn. I don't know if you've ever read a biography, maybe the Diary of Anne Frank or Benjamin Franklin's diary or any of those things. You learn so much from the experience of others. And I want to take a moment to share with you some of my most valuable lessons from some of my largest blunders. And I believe that as we go through this, you'll be able to benefit as well. And it'll hopefully lessen the fear, help you take more action, and give you a foundation from which you can begin your own real estate career. So let's get started. When we look at number one of the things that we have here is like starting too late. See, I just shared with you all the things that happened as it relates to the story afterwards. When my friend came to me and said, hey, real estate was the solution, that wasn't the first time we had considered getting involved in real estate investing. We started too late. See, that same friend had offered me an opportunity earlier, but that time it was, hey, let's do this together. And I said no. In the meantime, between the time I said no and the time he came back, he had literally earned millions of dollars, half of which, at that time, would have been ours. So I put a value on starting too late. More importantly, letting fear control my actions, control and dictate what I do and don't do, succumbing to it, and letting it stop me from moving forward, i.e., not moving at the speed of instruction. It cost me tons of money. Now, in my case, I wanted to wait until all the lights were green because it didn't make sense. You know, I had what at that time I thought it was fine, comfortable place to go and stay. Here's what I missed. You don't need to wait for all the lights to be green to get started. Here's what I mean by that. Could you imagine if what you did when you were going to the grocery store, going to get something to eat, you're like, you know what? I'm going to go get something to eat, but I'm not going to leave my house until all the lights are green between my house and the place you're going to go eat. Would you ever leave the house? The answer is probably no. Oftentimes, we want to see the clear path that leads directly to the destination, and unfortunately, that's not always the case. Sometimes you got to go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see further. That one thought process, I know for a fact, cost me at least $500,000. So let's go on to number two. When it comes down to making real estate and business happen for you, one of the most important things to understand is the documentation. Now, in my first transaction, I was very, very excited. I'm what you call a doer. You know, I go out there, I make things happen, and the details often escape me. So, believe it or not, even though I'm in the process of learning how to do real estate and I'd never done it before, I didn't thoroughly read the documentation. And that resulted in the following. I thought I was purchasing a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I ended up purchasing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. You're like, how is that possible? Didn't you go see the house? No, I didn't. Now, that doesn't mean you have to see the house, but it does mean that if you get an inspection report, you should read it. Because I didn't. You never know the information that is contained sometimes in those reports. And in this particular case, that was one of the things. Additionally, I didn't completely understand the mortgage documentation. And long story short there, what ended up happening is that it put us in a situation in which the cash flow that we had suddenly evaporated because the mortgage loan adjusted and all these other things. It's now a fully amortized loan, and that's fine. It's just I didn't know it was going to happen. And those were the things that caught us unaware. Not understanding or not reading the documentation fully can occasionally cost you. Now, understand this. Just because you read every word doesn't mean you understand the impact of every word. That's where teammates can come in to help you understand these things so that you can still move forward without thinking you have to become a legal expert yourself. Keep that in mind. When it comes to number 2, please read the document. And in my terms, I believe that to be a $30,000 lesson on just that one transaction alone. Let's look at number 3. Well, for those of you who have been following me in any sort of time, you know one of the things that I love to say is do only that, and keywords on only that which you do best, and hire out the rest. And there are only a few specific things that you and I do best. So don't fool yourself into thinking that you've got to do everything yourself, because you are paying what is typically known as an opportunity cost. Because you are trying to learn and investing your energy in something that you don't do best, you are by default not doing what you do best. Let me give you a quick example. One of the things that I struggle with personally is the whole idea of the accounting and bookkeeping that goes along with these complicated transactions that we can occasionally do. Well, a complicated transaction has many different balance sheets involved, many different profit and loss statements, many different debits and credits, and God only knows if they're let's just hope there's not a journal entry too. All of these things I know today, but the point is, how do you do them correctly? How do you make sure that the books mean and say exactly what happened? These are all things I thought I had to do myself. In fact, I told myself, I'll save money by doing it myself. That's what I said. Well, here's what I did. I was literally 90 plus transactions in. Now, I started out my career as a wholesaler. That meant I bought properties at a discount and I sold them at a discount. I bought them at a discount, sold them at a discount, and we did it quickly. So there's money coming in, there's money going out, and it's fast, and it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. 90 plus transactions and zero accounting. Now, here's what I learned. You want to get your CPA, your accounting, a bookkeeper on your team as soon as humanly possible. They are by far and away the number one person that you need. You say to yourself, but Jay, I know how to do all that. Great. I still don't want you to do it because it'll prevent you from becoming the CEO that you need to be so that you can go out there. Now, I'm not telling you just to, abdicate and turn your books over and never look at it again. What I'm saying is let someone else do the work that you are now saying is below your pay grade. See, we eventually, obviously, have to catch all that up and tell the IRS what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. And it took a while to make that happen. I remember when I finally got up the courage to engage someone, they came to me and I kid you not, they said, Jay, there's a small matter of about $400,000 and we don't know where that went. Do you? So imagine if you can. Do you remember what you ate for breakfast, dinner, lunch, yesterday? How about last week? Do you remember how much it cost? Do you still have that receipt? That's just one meal we're talking about, and we had to go back and try to recreate $400,000 worth of transactions to understand where did the money go. Otherwise, it was going to be taxed, and it was going to be a really big bill. Here's the point. Just figuring that out. We're not even going to talk about the time that was involved. Just Getting enough service providers on board to help us do that easily cost $150,000 to straighten that out. Ask yourself this question. Do you think a bookkeeper, an accountant, CFO, any of those people cost $150,000? So you can consider this a coupon right here. Get that person on board as soon as humanly possible. Sit down with them, explain to them your business model so that they know how to keep up with the accounting that is happening inside your business before you end up with a big bill. Let's move on. Number 4. As you go through real estate, in fact, one of the best things about business is the fact that you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to know all of the pieces. You get to use the concept of leverage. See, when I say the word leverage, though, specifically when it comes to real estate, many people often think of loans and money. Well, what I also mean is, well, what about other people's time? What about other people's knowledge? What about other people's everything? If they can do it bigger, better, faster than you, let them. Period. And sometimes what it means is that you want to partner with other people. Here was the lesson that I learned. I know that myself, I am mechanically challenged. So you put a hammer, a staple gun, a caulking gun, any of those devices in my hand, and bad things are going to happen. I can guarantee that. So therefore, when it comes to rehabbing property or fixing and flipping, I'm not the guy that's in charge of the construction crew. I'm not the guy that's putting that together. I'm not the guy on the ground with the hard hat. That's not me. So I was partnering with individuals who supposedly had that strength and, more importantly, knew how to run the crew, select the team, and make everything happen. Long story short, that to me meant I was the weaker partner. So therefore, I abdicated a lot of the decision making, and we did a 50-50 transaction. I was going to raise the money, bring it to the table, and make all that happen. They were going to run the parts that they were supposed to run, and everybody was going to be happy, go lucky, etc., etc. Here's one of the lessons that I learned. A partnership is the only ship designed to sink. By that I mean, when you begin working with someone, you want to start out by thinking about what happens if this ship sinks? How does that unravel? Because as entrepreneurs, we're naturally optimistic. It's only going to go up and everything's going to go well, and we don't like to invest a whole lot of time in wondering what happens if it falls apart. Here's my point. Invest the time. Because here's what fell apart for me. The title company went out of business. The contractor skipped town, literally. And I mean, skipped town. The floor in the building, inside the house, was gone. I don't know how the floor disappears, but the floor was gone. I don't even know how to say this. The individuals we ended up getting the properties from was eventually persecuted or jailed by the FBI and the FTC. It was crazy. All of these things, and then, oh, by the way, there's this small little thing of title insurance that didn't happen either. Now, get title insurance. Because then you'll get to know all about the process of what's called quiet title. If you've never been through that, you don't want to be. It's basically you got to sue everyone to say, hey, this property is mine, and if anyone on the planet Earth believes that they have claim to this, please, by all means, let us know so that we can pay you off. Because that's basically what ends up happening. And that takes time. Long story short, understand that you are probably the stronger partner. You can become the stronger partner, negotiate like that from the beginning, and most importantly, make sure that you think about what happens if the ship sinks before you start. I can easily say that in this case, that this particular deal, this particular transaction, this particular lesson is easily worth $200,000. Let's continue. When it comes down to something falling apart, one of the most important things you've got to remember to do is communicate. Communicate to those who are involved. So one of the ways that, when you're in real estate that you're communicating, yes, to the partners, but also the investment capital came from somewhere, right? So you've got to learn how to communicate positive as well as negative or not so positive information to those whom you have a fiduciary responsibility. And this is where, again, I failed horribly. And the reason I say I failed horribly is because they had to call me in a lot of cases, and I promise you, I didn't want to pick up the phone. So that's lesson number one. Even if something goes horrible, pick up the phone. Because one of the things that I learned and heard through this was, even though this happened, I'd give you money again. And I was shocked. I was like, please tell me why. They said, because you will never make that mistake again, and you are now a safer bet. I was like, you are so right. Here's my point. Communicate. Because it cost me, the company, and it'll cost you referrals. That lost business is lost. It's really difficult to go and get that back if you don't communicate, whether it goes well or whether it doesn't, okay? And what I learned in this particular section of the lesson was a lot of investors, they understand that not everything is going to go well. You may be the one that's surprised. Oh, wow, this happened. That's why I say you got to think about what happens on the downside just as much as you think about what happens on the upside, but also have communication channels in place. Obviously, today we're significantly better at communicating than we used to be, and we're always improving, but those are the things that I learned in that case. And I say that there was lost revenue, lost opportunity, simply because we didn't communicate. In this particular case, it's really hard to assign a number because how many referrals could that have been? Who knows? But we're going to call this one $100,000. $100,000. Let's go on. This one, for those of you, if you've actually already picked up a copy of my book, Cash Flow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy, if you already have this and you've looked at step number 9, this is where the profit analysis quadrant comes from. I was doing deals the best way I knew how. And then I learned that my CFO had some ideas. This was long before I understood how to communicate with a financial CFO. Like, you know of a bookkeeper and an accountant. You kind of understand what they're supposed to do. But how do you work with the CFO? What's the difference? And this is where she began to train me on what that difference looked like and what it should be and how the relationship between CEO and CFO should go. And more importantly, the massive dollar benefit that you would be able to have if you have such a person. Here's my point. She would say things to me like, okay, so this deal is done. However, if you had done it this way and gave them this benefit, the company would have had this benefit. And I was like, wow, that's neat. She would say other things to me like, Jay, many of the investors, they're not cashing their checks. And I'm like, what do you mean? Then I'd call the investors and they go say, well, we didn't cash it because it's going to our retirement fund. We didn't have any use for it. And I'm like, what? So this is akin to a company when it pays a dividend. That's cash just not reinvested into further research and development or product development, if you will. So the same thing was happening, and I had to come up with a solution that made sense. It didn't make sense to me. How on earth and why on earth wouldn't you want to cash your check? But guess what? The people are out there who don't need the cash flow today. They need growth through appreciation. And if you've read the book, you know that there are 5 types. And you understand that. Here's my point. By understanding that and understanding it clearly, you have the ability to have better deal structure from the beginning. Now, when I look at all of the past deals that I've done and add them all up and the numbers of times that I've overpaid investors for paying too much interest, man, it adds up to a really, really, really large number. With that being said, I'm going to say that bad deal structure easily easily cost $300,000. Now, you may say to yourself, well, where did the $300,000 go? Well, it went into the investors' pockets. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, win-win does not always mean equal. Because there's lost opportunity cost for the company not being able to use those dollars that just sits there. And the investors want to just have their money keep working. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to do what you may think naturally works. Bad deal structure is important and imperative. Just because a deal is profitable, it may not be profitable, or it could have been more profitable for you and your company if you understand things like the profit analysis quadrant. Let's keep going. When we look next, this one by far, at this point you're like, good God, how many mistakes does this guy have? Well, here's the deal. A lot. I want you to understand something. If the information I'm going through with you right now is like, oh my gosh, scaring you, and you're like, I'm just not doing real estate, great. Because that could be one of the decisions you make. Here's the point. When you are comfortable and learn to become more comfortable with failing fast, failing forward, and failing frequently, you have the ability to grow. So on this one, definitely, as I've said, one of my larger mistakes and something that I learned very, very painfully. It's called the single point of failure. That's that one thing you're hinging on. If this one thing breaks, everything else falls apart. So here's how this manifested itself for me. In this particular case, in one marketplace that we were working in, we had one person who was in charge of the rehab as well as in charge of the property management and running the facilities. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. Don't do this. Here's why. Because what would happen is that in the process of the rehab, we would go through and then do our checks, but we could be expertly led to the buildings and the units that were actually rehabbed and then told that the other units weren't yet rehabbed and more importantly were not, we couldn't go in because we didn't know, and which makes sense to some degree, right? But always check all your units all the time, every one of them, always. You're hearing some of the lessons already because it'll make it difficult to quote unquote play this shell game of where the money went. And then occasionally you could report a building that hadn't been rehabbed as occupied. So think about it. If a unit that hadn't been rehabbed was occupied, interestingly enough, if you were receiving a check, you wouldn't think to check that unit because you're like, it must be cool because, hey, you're getting the check. Long story short, we have learned to put lots of other checks and balances in place. We've got now a system whereby we use multiple property managers in any one location. We've got second and third layers of cash management, all these things that are really, really like high level, but really awesome. And going through this process, I learned a ton. I learned a ton about my team and how close you can actually become and learn literally how to communicate with your operations, the CFO. Everybody came together to make the company run, and it was awesome to see that. But a single point of failure can be very deadly for you financially. Let me give you an example of another single point of failure you're probably really familiar with. You have a job. Whether it's a W-2 job or a self-employed client, it doesn't really matter. If that one job or one client goes away, now what? This is part of the reason why we started slanting towards acquiring as many units of production as humanly possible. Is because if we lose, quote unquote, one unit, we have another 40 that make up for the lack of the one. Does that make sense? These are the things that get me excited today, is to know that the more we have, the safer, more predictable our income has the ability to be. And the same is true for you. Now, does that mean you got to learn new skill sets? Yeah. Does that mean you're going to make some mistakes the first time you do it? You better. All of those things are part of the process. This is why I say you've got to learn to fail fast, fail forward, and fail frequently. In this particular case, this lesson alone was definitely, easily being understated, even though I'm going to tell you $800,000. Yeah, $800,000. And the reason I know that number very specifically because when we went to court to sue the guy, that's what they awarded us, and that is the judgment we have. That doesn't count lost revenue. That doesn't count all the other stuff that could have happened. It doesn't count opportunity cost, and God only knows what else. The point is, it's $800,000 lesson given to you at no cost. No single points of failure. Now, as a bonus, I got to give you something that I know will help you in a very short while. So if you're going to play this real estate game, at some point, you will experience the joy, that's sarcasm, of a fire. It's going to happen, all right? And it has happened to me more than once, and I am now really good, and the company is excellent at being able to process claims and understand these things. But here's what I share with you. One of the most important things you can do when a fire happens, if the building is still standing and salvageable in any way, shape, or form, is to go get an insurance policy. You're like, what do you mean? Well, occasionally what could happen is that as you have a fire, the existing insurance policy may say, okay, cool, we'll cover you, but we're also canceling. And here's what my thinking was. My thinking was, okay, cool. It's a half-burnt building, so how on earth am I going to go do and get another insurance policy? It didn't make sense. But it turns out that there are companies out there that would do this. Here's why it became important. It's because during the process of filing the first claim, what happened was the building caught fire again. And you know what that meant? That meant the remaining building was not there to be inspected, so therefore our claim got adjusted downward because there's no building now. The city came, knocked down the building, and we're just like, great. Now what do we do? Long story short, get insurance, and yes, twice, even on a burnt building. And here's the bonus tip. There are individuals out there who literally fight for you on your behalf against the insurance company. Here's what I mean. If you've ever filed an insurance claim, understand this. The insurance adjuster doesn't work for you. They work for the insurance company. Yes, they're friendly. Yes, they're nice, but they're not on your side. The public adjuster, however, is. Many of such public adjusters work on contingency. That's code for you don't have to pay them. So call them. You don't have to pay them unless they succeed at obtaining an award or settlement for you. Even if you're like, well, I'll do it myself so that I don't have to pay them, still the wrong move. Because now you're going to invest so much time. And I promise you, you cannot, and I'll say it one more time, you cannot process a claim as efficiently, as thoroughly, as everything as them. You just can't do it. Well, unless you're a public adjuster. Here's the point. Go get the insurance twice. Talk to the public adjuster because I can tell you for a fact that these mistakes add up to many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you go back and add up all the numbers, you'll see what I mean by how it costs millions of dollars to not know the information you now know.
Howdy, peoples. Hopefully that was helpful for you. I'm not really sure. We wanted to give you guys something that we thought would be helpful and share with you that I'm not perfect, but we already knew that. That was not exactly, that wasn't news, was it? So hopefully not, and definitely give you some insight, some thoughts where these are where some of the lessons have come from, from a single family house, as you heard at the beginning. Some of those were apartment buildings that we were talking about. and obviously continuing doing deals, you learn something, as they say, on almost every one. So we do our best to help, you guys through not only the, hey, do it this way, but also do it the wrong way. And if you think about it, people who know how to do something is because they've probably found out how to not do something first, and then now they're sharing it with you. So I'm glad that totally is something I'm seeing you guys in the chat. So it looks like you liked it. This is great. I see a number of you on Facebook. Hey, Marcus, James, Paul, thanks for being here. I'm sorry, what is that? You're researching the real estate market. Yes. Oh, you're talking to each other. I see what's going on. All right, Janice, and it looks like Xavier. Awesome. Excellent. Nonetheless, not everybody gets it right all the time. I figured, it doesn't hurt to share with you some things that have happened that have not gone well. Obviously, I could go for another 30 minutes, hour or so, even with more lessons. But I think that's enough for now. A couple of reminders really, really quickly is one, for those of you who may have come in as a result of a share, we are in the process of still doing our giveaway for the iPad Pro. So if you want to have an entry for the iPad Pro, all you got to do is share the broadcast when we're live, and we count all the shares. So every one of your shares counts. If you share multiple times, that's awesome. And at the end, we're going to put all your entries into a bowl or hat or something and pick one out, and that person is going to win a swanky iPad Pro, which we think is awesome. And then feel free, if you want more information, always go to Cashflow Diary Podcast. On Mondays and Thursdays, we release new episodes where you hear other entrepreneurs also talking about the things that they have done that may have not gone well, but also has gone well as well. And I see a number of you typing that you do listen to the podcast. I absolutely appreciate that. We do our best to keep getting as many interesting guests as we can indeed find. And lastly, this is feel free to catch replays at cashflowdiary.tv. Some of them stay there a long time. Some of them don't stay there very long at all. So always check it, cashflowdiary.tv. With all of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.